Why are my neighbors disappearing? The Wilson house had been empty for 3 weeks, but their cars were still in the driveway, and mail was piling up. Everything was normal through their windows, but they were gone. Then the Lee family vanished the same way, and I started to panic. I called the police about the Wilsons, and they said adults can leave whenever they want. When I mentioned their dog was still in the backyard, they sent someone to check. The officer said the dog had food and water, so nobody was neglecting it. He suggested they were on vacation, even though their cars were still there. When the Lees disappeared, I called again, but got the same response. The cop said people were probably taking summer trips. I explained the Lees had 3 kids missing school, but he just took a report. I could tell he thought I was overreacting. I started keeping track of which houses were suddenly empty. In 6 weeks, 5 families had vanished from our street. Not moved out because their stuff was still inside. Just gone between one day and the next without anyone seeing them leave. I tried talking to the remaining neighbors, but they acted like nothing was wrong. Mrs. Cooper said the Wilsons had mentioned staying with family, but I'd talked to Wilson the day before he vanished, and he'd said nothing about any trip. He'd been planning to resurface his driveway. I bribed the mailman for info, and he said 5 families had put indefinite mail holds all within the same month. They'd used the same forwarding address that turned out to be a P.O. box 3 towns over. When he questioned it, his supervisor told him not to worry about it. I drove to that P.O. box and watched it for a full day. Nobody came. The postal worker said it was rented 6 months ago, but she'd never seen anyone use it. The name on the rental was just initials that didn't match any neighbors. Every family that disappeared had been to the same community meeting at the library 2 months before vanishing. I'd skipped it, but my wife Elise remembered the Wilsons mentioning it. The library had no record of any meeting, even though I'd seen cars in the parking lot. The Wilsons' trash hadn't been picked up, so I went through it. There were receipts for camping equipment and bulk food, hundreds of dollars on supplies for living somewhere remote. Also, library books about communal living that were now overdue. Mr. Torres started acting different after the others disappeared. He kept inviting us to dinner with strange urgency. He wanted to discuss our future in the neighborhood and mentioned how much happier the Wilsons seemed before they left. When I asked where they went, he just smiled. Elise found out 3 missing families had paid off their mortgages in full weeks before disappearing. Her friend at the bank said they'd all come in the same day with cashier's checks. Legal, but unprecedented. Cars started driving slowly past our house at odd hours. One had an out-of-state plate, and when I tried to follow it, went straight to the highway and left town. More neighbors mentioned major life changes. Mrs. Cooper talked about reevaluating what mattered. Mr. Torres gave away his expensive watch, saying material things were meaningless. Normal suburban people suddenly talking differently. I set up a camera to watch the street, but it showed nothing unusual for weeks. The empty houses sat there like missing teeth, and every day I wondered if we'd be next. Elise found a handwritten letter tucked in our door about finding true community and leaving behind false obligations. It said our neighbors had found something worth pursuing. There was a phone number, but when I called it, just rang. The remaining neighbors stopped making eye contact. They'd have hushed conversations that ended when we approached. I saw Mrs. Cooper burning photo albums in her backyard. When I asked what she was doing, she said she was letting go of the past. Then Mr. Torres disappeared with 2 other families on the same night. I was watching, but must have fallen asleep because one moment their lights were on, and the next the houses were dark and empty. Cars still there, and doors locked. We were one of 3 families left on the entire street. Elise stopped sleeping well and kept checking locks. I kept a baseball bat by the bed, though I didn't know what I was protecting us from. I tried calling the FBI, but they said no crime had been committed. Adults are free to leave. Dozens vanishing from one neighborhood wasn't illegal, just unusual. They suggested testing the water, but results showed nothing wrong. 2 more families left then, just us and the Millers. They stopped answering their door and kept curtains drawn. Then one morning, their house was empty too, and we were alone. The silence was the worst part. No kids playing or lawnmowers or cars starting, just quiet except for the Wilsons' dog still barking at nothing. Elise wanted to leave, but I needed to know what happened. Then one night, Elise woke me because she heard something outside. The entire street was full of people walking toward our house. I recognized all of them immediately. The Wilsons and Lees and Torres family and dozens of others who'd vanished over the months, all in white robes walking in perfect synchronization. They stopped in front of our house and stood completely still, just staring at our windows in complete silence. Full story on the channel below.